So how do you actually prepare for these interviews? How do you make that happen? So I have some suggestions for you guys. So the first one, really valuable, and we're going to be doing this very soon when we're actually doing our practice interviews. So preparing for your interview, you want to create your own list of likely questions. Because in a general sense, you probably have an idea of what the reporter wants to ask, but there is a really big difference between kind of knowing in general what they're doing and literally sitting down and writing it and say, okay, if I were a reporter, here are the questions I would want to ask. The discipline of doing that, which doesn't even take that long, it takes 10 to 15 minutes maybe, really helps you crystallize what can I expect. Because if you're Ted Kennedy, look, you should probably know that if you're running for president, that maybe someone would want to know why. And so it's, we can't ever blame ourselves if we get a really, truly bizarre question and we don't know how to answer it. But if someone asks you, why do you want to be president? Or like, why did you start your business? Or something like that, you really want to have something that you can say to people. So that's number one. Number two, practicing is really the only way to actually make it happen. It's a good step to write out the answers, but if they're just in your head, it's hard to really operationalize it, because an interview is a dialogue. It's a conversation in real time. And so if it's at all possible, it's really useful to take these questions that you've written down, give them to somebody else, give them to your friend, give them to your spouse, and say, hey, can we do like a mock interview? And just the act of practicing is very helpful because it enables you to get the bad stuff out. Because inevitably, you are going to sort of flub an answer or two. You want to do it when you're practicing, not when you're really doing it. So that's pretty easy. The other thing that we need to keep in mind is that brevity is really important for the news. I mean, certainly for TV, because they cut everything down, and it's, like a segment is 2 minutes. So your part of a segment is like, 4.2 seconds or something. But just in general, you don't want to ramble. And the sad truth is that if you're nervous, most people ramble. So we need to cut off this very human response and find ways of making sure that we are brief. You want to practice speaking in 30-second sound bites. And this sort of sounds slightly dehumanizing, like, oh, make it a sound bite. But really what it is that we want to guard against us kind of just going off in a really random direction, because you want it to be a good dialogue, not just you monologuing for 10 minutes. So I guarantee, if a reporter wants more information, they will ask. So if you can have a good 30-second answer, and they say, oh, that's so fascinating, tell me more, then you can go back and forth and have that dialogue. But that way it allows them to steer the conversation to what they really want, rather than having them get mad at the end because you monologued for 10 minutes about this thing and it wasn't at all what they wanted to hear. So how do we do this? It's hard to actually know what 30 seconds feels like. That's kind of a weird thing, because if you're nervous, time is, sometimes it moves fast, sometimes it moves slow, you don't know. But I would suggest that with your smartphones, they all have the timer functionality now. Just literally set the timer and practice and see what it feels like. And then you can get more comfortable and you'll begin to know it intuitively. And then finally, know your proof points. So in addition to being clear, with these sound bites about the key things that you would really like to get across, in any interview, you want to say like, oh wow, if much like your 3 words, right? If there's only 3 things that I can get across in this interview, what would they be? Well, okay, maybe it's that my bakery is having a Pi Day celebration. Maybe it's that my bakery won an award from Boston Magazine last year. And maybe it's that every day we have a muffin special, or whatever it is. But what are your top 3 things? So you want to know that, but you also want to know proof points, by which I mean, if any of the things that you're saying are that you really want to get across are not facts, if they're sort of opinions, like we make the best croissants in the Bay Area, then how do you prove it? Because if you just say, well, we make the best croissants, that's nice, but it's not very believable because everybody says it. So if you can think about ways to demonstrate the evidence, that's kind of useful. So for instance, one would be if you won awards. Another would be if you source from really fine organic ingredients. Maybe another is that you were trained at Le Cordon Bleu, so you have these 300-year-old croissant techniques. All of those things flesh it out and give evidence to the claims that you're making, and will be very useful and interesting to reporters. So that's something to keep in mind.